Just a few days before the Tour of Flanders, the 80th edition of Dwars door Vlaanderen offered riders a final chance to tune up before the Ronde itself. Some of the sport's biggest names were present. Tadej Pogacar wasn't, neither was Mathieu van der Poel, the latter a former winner of this Wednesday afternoon race. Pedersen back from illness. Philipsen was there, and Van Aert also looking to race over 184.6 kilometres, starting in Roeselare and finishing in Waregem. Another excursion into the Flemish Ardennes. And 174 riders taking on the 12 hills and other cobbled sectors. This race nowadays centres around two loops, the first around the Knokteberg, the second taking on the Nolkerenberg. And at the top of the first passage of the Knokteberg, 18 of the world's biggest riders were already at the front of the race. 92 kilometres remained, and the race had been ridden at a lightning fast pace. All too much for Arnaud Delis, who was dropped and would soon be pulling out of the race. The first group was caught with 85 k's remaining. The speed at this point almost 50 kilometres per hour average. Wout van Aert was on the move, and there were several riders who were trying to stick with him. His own team was looking good as well. Christophe Laporte, a former winner of the race, was up there. Per Steenhageners looking strong, and he'd take that strength into the several hills that then came. He was doing enough to drop Tobias Lund, one of the candidates to win if it came to a sprint at the end. On the top of the Horton, a new group was coming together with 52 k's to go. Nicolas Larsen, Romain Grégoire and Thomas Gachignard had a little gap. Then they moved to the Eckenberg, the hardest climb in the second half of the race. 10% maximum gradient for 1.2 kilometres. At the front they were riding as hard as they could. Philippe Ogana was suffering from a mechanical issue. Broken handlebars this time, that after a bike change just a few kilometres before. At the same time as that was happening, at the front of the race, Wout van Aert was doing a madness. Showing so much power on a different level and riding away from the rest of what was left of the peloton. He'd already showed form in Flanders Fields on Sunday and was straight to Gachignard, who'd been left behind by his breakaway companions. Talking of the breakaway, Van Aert was across to it with 39 k's to go. Ganna was having his second bike change in as many kilometres. And Van Aert building an advantage at the front with Frenchman Grégoire and track world champion Larsen from Denmark. Into the final 35 k's, there were attacks, moves, chases, groups, and it continued to change. Sheffield and Tim van Dijk were joined by Florian Vermeers with 24 k's on the clock. And to the penultimate climb, the Nolkerenberg up the cobbles saw Romain Grégoire dropped. Larsen would stay with Van Aert, who'd been second in this race a year before when he had two teammates with him. Remember the 3 versus 1? Paulus doing a standard versus Visma. But this time Van Aert was hanging on, looking to win his first Belgian cobbled race for over 2 years. And almost half a minute of a gap started to come down. Van Baarle, Watson and others riding. 15 seconds the gap up the final climb of the race. The Nolkerenberg from the paved side this time, and Larsen dropped. Wout van Aert was going to go it all alone in the final 10 kilometres. Madouas tried to chase. Van Aert still alone and into the final 5 k's with 16 seconds. The final cobbled obstacle done, and a new chase was developing. Florian Vermeers and Filippo Ganna. Ganna, who'd never won a one-day race in his career, but just 5 seconds behind as Van Aert went into the final kilometre. We were in for a tremendous finish. Filippo Ganna's gaining behind as well. There's a huge group as well. 300 metres to the line. It's Wout van Aert at the front. What a finish here. And look at Filippo Ganna. Look at Filippo Ganna. He comes into the slipstream. Oh, it's heartbreak for Wout van Aert. Heartbreak for Wout van Aert. Delight for Filippo Ganna. And his own greatest classic success is confirmed. It was the fastest ever Dwars door Vlaanderen by almost 2 kilometres per hour. It was won by Ganna, who was a one-day race victor after having threatened to do so years and years throughout his career. Van Aert having to settle for second and caught less than 100 metres from the finish line. Søren Varnenshaw will win the sprint for third place, just ahead of Binyam Girmay. A 15th victory of the season for the Ineos Grenadiers. They're having their best start for a long time. Ganna is coming into one-day form, winning a race for the maiden time in his career. 38 other race wins before then, but he's now a semi-classic winner. Galloping up to Van Aert and taking the victory just down the road from Belgium's most famous racecourse. Tour of Flanders itself promises to be a cracking race. You can watch it live and on demand. It's on TNT Sports and HBO Max.